Hey, how's it going, YouTube? I'm back in the video, and today I'm going to be talking about how the Oklahoma City managed to form one of the best rebuilds maybe of all time. Now, I'm beginning to all the transactions that led up to this rebuild and why are they important, and then how this rebuild and how these transactions all add up together to actually form this fantastic rebuild the Oklahoma City Thunder have put together over the past 2 years. So yeah, I'm beginning to all this in this video. So if you do like the video, hit the like button and subscribe button to mean the absolute world to me. And without further ado, without running on too much, let's get right into this video. Alright, so the first thing we begin into this video is going to be every major transaction that has led up to the rebuild to this point. Now, all these might not be the world's biggest transactions, but they were transactions that resulted in the strength of the rebuild and the overall effectiveness of the actual rebuild itself. And the first transaction that I'm going to be actually talking about is the Carmelo Anthony trade. This is the trade that consisted of Carmelo Anthony and a 2022 first-round pick for Dennis Schroeder, Timothy Lubog Cabret. I just butchered that name. I am so sorry. That is a really weird name, but I did say it. And a Philly top 14 protected pick in 2022. So they traded Melo in a first rounder for a lottery protected first round pick and Dennis Schroeder. And then my second transaction that, I would have never thought this would become a major transaction, but it has. They were able to sign Dort. And the reason I'm saying only Dort is because I have no idea how to say his first name. And I already butchered one person's name. There's no point in me murdering two names in one video. And now my third transaction is going to be when they traded Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul and 4 first-round picks. And I think that one's pretty self-explanatory to why this would be important for a rebuild due to the surplus of picks they got, plus Chris Paul. And with all the recent things that just went down, this trade is looking very good for the Thunder. And then the next trade I have is when they traded Paul George to the Clippers for Danilo, Gallinari, Shai, Gilgouse, and 7 more future first-round picks. And then the last transaction I have is Jeremy Grant for a 2020 first-rounder from the Denver Nuggets. So all these transactions I think are the biggest ones that are contributing to the rebuild. Now, as for why I think this, well, I'm be going through every single transaction I just said and saying why I think they're all extremely important to the strength of the rebuild. Well, the first one is going to be the Carmelo trade, and the reason I think the Carmelo trade was so beneficial for the Oklahoma City Thunder is because, well, they were able to get someone like Dennis Schroeder, who became a 6th Man of the Year candidate, and an extremely important piece of this roster this year. It was a huge piece of their success, and then you add the fact that they got a lottery protected first rounder. And anytime you can get more draft capital, even if it might not be the best first rounder, it's still a first round pick, and that's just more draft capital to have. And the more draft capital you have, the better your team is going to be and the better your future is going to look. And then, like I said earlier, the Dort signing, which no one ever would have thought someone named Luguentz Dort would be one of the biggest signings in that offseason for any team in the NBA, has became one of the best signings you could have ever made. As he almost single-handedly won Game 7 and really a few games in that Houston Rockets Clippers series for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So with that being said, the Thunder, with him on the team, they're probably gonna be able to sign him back. He's a great defender. He can shoot a little bit. He hustles. He's built like a linebacker. The dude's looking like a very, very good signing for this Oklahoma City team. And I think if he can play anywhere near what he played in the Houston series, well, this was a great pickup for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And now my next one is going to be the Russell Westbrook trade, where they were able to get CP3, who is debatably a better point guard than Russell Westbrook. So even if it was straight up, you could debate that CP3 was still better, which means Oklahoma City would win. But then you add the fact that they were still able to add 4 future first rounders into that trade. I think you can safely say that the Oklahoma City Thunder won that Russell Westbrook trade. The Thunder are already out of the playoffs now, so Houston didn't get any better from the trade. The Rockets got better. The Thunder got better from the trade, debatably got the better player, and fleeced them out of their next 4 years of first round picks, which is great for any team. And then in the Paul George trade, pretty much a similar thing happened. They were able to get one of the best rising young guards in the entire NBA in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's already a borderline all-star and is probably going to be an all-star level player, maybe even an all-NBA third-team type player one day once he does peak. And then Danilo Gallinari, who's a borderline all-star big man who can stretch the floor and is just a great scorer from that big man position and is an extremely underrated player. player, and then to make it even worse, they gave up 2 pretty much borderline all-star level players and 7 future first-round picks. Now, although all 7 of those are not the Clippers picks, they still gave up tons of draft capital just for Paul George. And although that Paul George is a great player, I think it's definitely safe to say that Oklahoma City pretty much won the trade. They got their guard of the future, they got a very good trade piece in Danilo Gallinari, or they could keep him, and significant draft capital going into the future. So, out of this just last 2 trades I just talked about, Russell Westbrook and Paul George, they added 11 first-round picks, which is great. Anytime you can add 11 first-round picks, even if they're not all very good picks, still, you never know. One of those picks could be lottery, and then boom, that could be a star, and now your team is a championship contender. And then the last one that I want to talk about is when they got another first-rounder. Now, although that's not a major move, they still added a first-rounder, and anytime you can get a first-rounder going into a rebuild is extremely important, and I think one for Jeremy Grant is extremely good. I don't think he's worth the first rounder, and they were able to get one, so that's always a big deal for a rebuilding team. And now for why I actually think this is one of the best rebuilds of all time. Well, you know that saying that you can't have your cake and eat it too? Well, the Thunder just did that. They're having their cake and eating it too, as meaning that they stayed a very competitive playoff team, and their future is as set up as anyone in the NBA, which is almost impossible to do. Look at it. The Thunder were able to keep an extremely competitive team. They almost made it to the second round of the playoffs and dropped off the Houston Rockets, which would have been a huge punch to the face to the Houston Rockets. Because, if they would have lost to the team that pretty much traded Chris Paul away from, and Chris Paul beat them, that would have been extremely embarrassing. But still, went Game 7, and they barely won. But still, Oklahoma City was able to put together an extremely competitive roster, extremely talented roster for this season, and they didn't have to blow it up, they didn't have to tank, they were able to stay competitive while setting up their future. And their future, the reason I think it is just so set up is because just look at what they have. They added a total of 13 future first round picks, and also they're in the perfect situation to trade Chris Paul to any contending team. They could trade him to Milwaukee Bucks, and they could get a plethora of picks and maybe even some high talented role players on that roster. They could trade Danilo Gallinari to anybody in the NBA. They would all love to have a power forward his size that can also stretch a floor like he can. They're going to be able to get a few first round picks and maybe even some young talent for him as well. Steven Adams, when he gets older, that's going to be a good trade piece as well. They have so many good trade pieces to add picks and add young guys, but they also have young guys to build off of already, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and now like Luguentz Dort and people like that who can just already be huge building blocks and a great foundation for this team even after they trade these veteran star level players away. And then also those 13 first round picks, even if only 2 or 3 hit, that's still enough to have a whole starting lineup if you add Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luguentz Dort. And then also you can trade those picks to get stars. There's just so many ways the Oklahoma City Thunder can go about this rebuild. It has to be a top 3 rebuild of all time, because it is very rare can you see someone trade 2 all-star level players, 2 MVP level players, and stay competitive, stay in the conversation to be even a second round playoff team while having a future set up as good as it is. So I think with all that being added together, the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to put together one of the best of all time rebuilds ever, like 2K my GM type shit rebuild in this situation. So yeah, but unfortunately guys, that's gonna be it for this video. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think Oklahoma City Thunder put together a very good rebuild? On your thoughts in the comment section below. And I hope you have a blessed day, have a blessed day, so you have a blessed day. See you in the next video. Goodbye, boo, blah.